Hey there, and welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. If you're looking to get more sales, more customers, master your marketing, and ultimately take control of your retail or e-commerce business, then you're in the right place. I'm Selena Knight, a retail growth strategist and multi-award-winning store owner whose superpower is uncovering exactly what your business requires to move to the next level. I'll provide you with the strategies, the tools, and the insight you need to scale your store. All you need to do is take action. Ready to get started? Hey there, welcome to today's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. Just before I hopped on to this session with John Chan, I was in a call with our supercharged clients and we were having a conversation around putting prices up because everything has gone up. The cost of shipping has gone up, the cost of products have gone up, and they'd kind of been absorbing it to their detriment. And so when we're talking about how do we choose what to put the price up to, regardless of factoring in things like shipping and all of that, at the end of the day, some products just look prettier. And one of the questions that we talked about was, can we charge more because something looks pretty? And my answer to that is 100% yes. I titled today's episode, Customers Don't Care About Your Products, before we even recorded it, because at the end of the day, customers don't care about your products. All they care about is what it's going to do for them. And so today on the show, John Chan from Berge Farrell is going to talk to us all about packaging, which kind of sounds boring, but we're going to take a little bit of a different spin on it. So welcome to the show, John. I just merged your names together there.
Thank you, Selena. I'm really very happy to be here. And don't worry, I've been called Chan most of my life, so that's okay.
I was with Jan, we put it together.
No, that's okay. Thank you very much for having me.
Cool. So packaging, how did you end up in the world of packaging? Because it can be very glamorous, but I'm sure it's one of those things. It's kind of like an airline hostess where it sounds glamorous on the outside, but in actual fact, it's just a job like anything else.
Yeah, look, Selena, thank you. That's a great question. I think from my perspective, I've had a long career in marketing from a client side and in FMCG in particular. And I think from a client side, I almost treated like packaging as a vessel. It was just the thing that was housing either the liquid or the cream or the food that you have inside. And it was just functional. And quite honestly, to the title of your podcast, there is so much more that you can do with packaging. It is undeniably, and I know I'm biased, but it is the most overlooked and least utilized owned channel that you have from a marketing perspective on a brand. It is your walking billboard. It is the billboard that your consumers will see every day. Even if it is on a shelf, even if it's on a digital online store, it is something that your customers, it's the first touch point. And packaging is not just a vessel. It is a way in which you tell people your story. It helps them dream of what their future could be like, if it's from a health perspective, if it's from an image perspective, and also critically, which is more important for these times of high inflation and where consumers are being really stressed and their shopping baskets are becoming more important, it is a chance to appeal to the shopper who is on a different mission, has different needs than a consumer does. And theirs is all about value, which I'm sure we can talk about a little bit more. And packaging helps to appeal to both of those two types of customers, if you will.
Okay, let's dig into that. But before we do, can I just say, if you are listening to this episode and you're thinking, but I don't manufacture my own products, wait for it, because John is going to talk to you about why packaging is really important to you, whether you have a retail store or an e-commerce store. We are going to get to that part of the conversation. But first, I'm just going to jump in and say, John, shopper versus consumer. Can you tell me more about your thoughts on that? I kind of have my assumption,
sure. Yeah.
But tell us what's behind that.
Sure. I think one of the mistakes that we have as brands is we think they're often the same people because, if you think of in your own situation, you need to go get something from the store, whatever it might be, or shop online, you're looking for yourself. So often then you're looking from an intrinsic point of view. So I'm looking for a cream, is this good for me? Is it sustainable? Will it make me look better or feel better? Whether it's an alcoholic beverage, is it mid-strength? Is it strong? How quickly does it get me on a buzz? Or does it not get me on a buzz?
I love that example.
If it's non-alcoholic, right? So it's everything about what it will do for me as the consumer, as the person who's actually going to be using the product. A shopper, most times, is not always the same person. It could be somebody in the household who does the weekly shop, or the whole household. It could be if you're in a house sharing arrangement, maybe you've split up duties who does the groceries on a weekly basis. And so you're buying for someone else.
I could be buying a fancy ass bottle of wine to take to a dinner party that I'm not going to drink.
Absolutely.
Not that I don't drink the wine. Maybe they drink red and I drink white.
No. And so that person then has different needs. That person is looking from more of an extrinsic point of view. Most often they're looking at it from a value perspective. What is the price? And it's certainly applicable in today's environment of high inflation, high prices. But also they're looking at, when you're in that mindset, you're looking at, well, what other value can I get? So if I buy 36 versus 24, what is the unit cost goes down? Great, that's perfect. What other complementary items can I get with it? So very often for the shower cream that we use, shower bath gel, it comes often with a complementary cream that you would obviously use afterwards. And 9 times out of 10 would buy that because it represents great value. Other things that a shopper considers is, well, if I'm the one that's bringing the groceries in from the garage.
Are we talking shopper or consumer?
Shopper. If I'm the shopper.
Okay, we're going, okay, yep, shopper.
Shopper
is the one buying the thing, but not necessarily for themselves.
Absolutely, yeah. And so there are other things I consider as well. If I'm taking whole basket loads of things from the garage, from the boot of my car into the kitchen or wherever it needs to go, how difficult is it to carry this thing? And so again, packaging plays a role from that. So from a consumer perspective, it tells the story. It makes them dream. It imagines a better future for them. For a shopper, packaging goes, well, what benefit do I get out of this? What extra value do I get out of this?
Can we just dig into benefit there? Because let's just go, you said a couple of examples, and I'm thinking of taking a fancy bottle of wine to somebody else's house. Yes, it's the value, but the thing we kind of overlook there is the value to me, because a value to me of a bottle of red wine is zilch. I have so many bottles of red wine. I don't drink the stuff. And people would be appalled to know I probably pour a $35 bottle of wine into my spaghetti bolognese because it has no value to me.
Sure.
Apart from re-gifting, I'm not going to use it. So whether I use it at least in spaghetti bolognese as it gets made.
Yeah.
But what you were saying there is, for me, the value is, how am I going to be perceived when I hand this over, whether it is a gift? Like if I'm buying a gift for somebody, I spend a lot of time and a lot of effort thinking about the gifts that I give to people. So my thought is, how are you going to perceive me when I hand this gift to you or this bottle of red wine? So there's a whole bunch of other emotions there.
Yep.
And packaging makes such a big difference because I'll be honest, if we go with the bottle of wine example, I'll take the one that looks the fanciest.
Yep. Absolutely.
A price that I think is relative to the event that I'm going to.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great example to use because I suppose if you were someone that really drank a lot of wine, so really knew your brands well, then it would be easier to then pick a brand as a gift because you know the brands that are really premium. Yes, you'll assume the price point matches the premium nature of the brand, but then this brand is really good. I don't even have to worry. It'll really, when I hand it over to someone, I can be proud of it and they'll know what it is and they'll know that I've actually put a bit of effort into it. From a perspective of someone who doesn't necessarily know the brands and because you don't drink wine, but it's a great gift to take, then absolutely, well, how does it look? Besides the price point, does it stand out? Does it look premium? And that we talk into more technical things like the substrates that people use on wine bottles. Is it embossed? Does it have gold foil, etc.? We won't get into those technical details right now. But also from a value perspective, often a good technique to use in terms of what we call value-added packaging is to group those bottles of wine with a fancy wine glass. And often you'll see
every time.
Absolutely.
Every time.
Yeah. And then it actually elevates the product that you're giving away. Because now actually I bought something of real value, because it's not just the liquid, but it's also the wine glasses that come with it. And it's a very popular technique to use over very high periods of buying activity, such as Christmas.
Black Friday, Cyber Monday coming up.
Yeah, exactly.
So you don't even have to be thinking about packaging for that. I've actually got a fun story that I'll jump into in a second. But if you have a retail or e-commerce store, this concept of doing it for the customer, I know for us, we used to bring our own boxes in, and you said the bottle of wine, which we didn't sell bottles of wine because we were selling baby products, but we actually did used to use those wine gift boxes with the two windows, because we would roll things like baby wipes up and they would look really nice stacked in the window. But you putting the things together, that just because the supplier doesn't put them together doesn't mean you can't put them together. So we would put that with, like you were saying, a bottle of baby shampoo or a bottle of baby bath, and putting it together, it kind of was a bit of a play on the wine bottle as well. It was like, you can't drink, but here you go. And the value to that is worth more than the products themselves, like individually. And I think a lot of people get confused here, because we often think of things like gift hampers and people go, do I need to discount it because someone's buying so much? And I'm like, no, you charge more for that. Because
absolutely.
You've taken away the decision-making, you've added in the convenience. The value add is convenience. It's not a product, it's the convenience. And you've taken away the stress, me having to make a decision, the time to do that. Like, you've just made it easy for me to buy. So packaging does so much more, but it doesn't have to be the supplier's packaging. It can be you, the retailer's packaging as well.
Yeah, and also, from a retailer's perspective, by grouping, probably this is stuff you obviously really know well, but by grouping complementary products or even more products, you increase the basket size. So if you talk about pricing ladders and capturing
average order value.
Absolutely, then you're on the right track. And it doesn't have to be something super elaborate. I recently bought a gift hamper for a client of mine who is going on maternity leave, and I knew absolutely nothing about whatever I needed to get, but I absolutely chose a hamper that had 2 or 3 items that I know a newborn would need, and that was it. It was quick and simple. It was on the front page. It's almost if they knew I was coming and they knew I was going to be confused. So that shopper journey was really good for me.
And you paid, I suspect you paid a premium for it, but you didn't sit there and add up the individual. Oh, if I went and bought these and I went and bought these, and it would have been less.
No, because my time that I saved from agonizing over, do I need to buy that with that and that and that, and it was just taken away because I assumed that there would be a level of expertise that went behind, and thinking that I didn't have to do, because shoppers are lazy. We often move into our subconscious thoughts when we go on a shopper mission, and then that's how brand recognition happens, right? You recognize something that is on the shelf because you've seen it before, and you go into autopilot and you pull it off and you put it into your basket and off you go. Similar psychology. It's like, it's easier for me to do this and I can go away and do something else and I tick another thing off my list, and I've achieved the objectives.
I love it. I love it. We did all the right things there. We made it easy for our customers to buy. We increased our basket size. We increased our average order value, and we probably increased the price because we put it as a premium.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've hit all the things.
Yeah. And you pay for the privilege of not having to think and freeing up your time.
Well, almost the expertise. You're paying for the retailer's expertise of saying, we know that these things go together. And we didn't just go and lump a whole bunch of stuff. We went and curated. You're paying for the curation.
Yeah. And you can absolutely, again, from a retailer's perspective, we've got so much data these days, and so much so that, we maybe don't know what we can do with them. But in that small little example, you can see what the most popular items are. You can bundle them together if they make sense from a complementary point of view. And there's quick and easy items that are impulse purchases when people are, surfing your website or shopping your aisles and things like that.
Yeah. Oh, and then you just wrote the copy. It's like, we've bundled up our best-selling items. Hello. As a consumer, thank you very much.
Yes.
Someone's going to be happy with this.
The cash registers will be ringing off the hook.
All right. Now, when it comes to packaging itself, what do we need to be looking for? Because I know, not necessarily just from a texture, like you mentioned before, textures, bottles, but overall, thinking about this consumer versus shopper, whether we're buying the, buying or creating the packaging because we're a product creator or a maker, or we're a retailer, what do we actually need to look for?
So I think from a product creator perspective, it starts at brand strategy. So brand strategy is different to business strategy. Business strategy is more about how do we make money and how do we do what are tactical things.
That's my department.
Right, perfect. And then brand strategy is more, why do we exist beyond making money? So who are we? What do we represent? What is in our DNA? Who are we targeting? And what are we trying to say about ourselves? And so if I had to use an analogy, brand strategy is, if you're a person, it's about who you are as a personality. What am I like inside? From there, packaging is one element of how you look as a person. So if you were an accountant at heart, you love numbers, you're very analytical, and your career path is you're going to do accounting or anything in that field, which is traditionally more conservative. The clothes you're going to wear are probably some blues. You're going to wear a tie, be a bit more formal, those kinds of things. And so your packaging, from a product perspective, coming from your brand strategy understanding, needs to represent that. It needs to tell your story, and also in that story, then appeal to the people that you're targeting. So a silly example is, if you're appealing to macho Harley Davidson bikers, for instance, perhaps you won't use floral patterns and colors because that's not necessarily in their repertoire when you're trying to appeal to them. From a retailer perspective, you're trying to make sure that within your category that you have, that every need is met for every consumer occasion, whether it is even within the alcohol category. There's different strengths of alcohol that you have within that one, let's call it beer, but also now more recently non-alcoholic.
Gosh, how do we not wish we had shares in that before it took off?
It's crazy. It's and it's just representing the changing face of the consumers and needs.
It kind of brings this concept, just you were talking about that, the non-alcohol, and we talk about food quite a bit, which is, I don't know if this podcast has gone live yet as we record, as this one goes to air, but I often talk about how food, kind of regardless of whatever it is you're selling, makes such a big difference. And one of the examples I have is at my gym, I've been going there for many years, they only just started selling protein bars. And of course, I had actually mentioned it to my husband a few times, but when they put them there, I'm like there's a grocery store across the road, but I'm not going to walk across the road to the grocery store. Like, you could charge me more than the grocery store because the time I'm going to save, they're charging less. I don't understand why, but not my problem. But food is such a great thing to be putting in, and quite often, food comes in nice packaging. And so adding that in as a value add is a great way to increase that basket size, increase that average order value, and just give that touch of luxury that doesn't necessarily need to be an expensive touch of luxury. And you kind of went on to packaging earlier, where with people tightening their belts, like, what is that little thing we can do to push them over the line? So, what is that extra thing you can add? And sometimes it is packaging.
Absolutely. And I think, it seems like we're going to the same gym, because I've just recently seen the same thing in my gym. There were so many promotions about giving away free scoops of protein, which I'd never seen before. And I've been going to gym for a few years, and it's only recently seen, there's more of these types of activation, new vending machines, etc. And, in that instance, again, it's from a business owner, whether you're the retailer or the product owner, et cetera, is understanding that journey of your customer or shopper or whatever it is. And so from a gym owner perspective, it's, my people come in here, they come to train, but very often they're either consuming protein while they're here that they've brought in themselves, or when they need to go away, because there's that magic 30-minute window, supposedly, after you train, where you really need to replace all your electrolytes plus, all of or get your protein needs in. And so that's the perfect time to add value to them by, adding products that can help them on the journey. And whether it is your own brand from the gym's perspective, or you partner with someone that does it, and then you can start looking at it. Well, what's the most convenient way? Well, to have an open tub of 2 kilogram protein here that everyone scoops in is probably not the best way to do it. So maybe we can look at a couple of single serve sachets that they can just take away. Same thing with the vending machine. We can package energy bars even small little meals if you want. But again, really paying attention to the journey that the consumer and the shopper goes on, and meeting the needs from the minute they get in to the minute that they leave. And packaging is a huge part of that because it houses that value.
So one of the things you just said on the subject of protein bars is the packaging, and I think you hinted on this earlier, the packaging being that the sales activator, because you're not going to be there, whether you're the retailer or whether you're the product creator, you're not going to be there hovering over somebody's shoulder as they're looking at a product. And the product is the packaging of the product has to tell the customer exactly what they need to know, whether they're the shopper or whether they're the consumer. And I'm just thinking of protein bars. We have two that we like. If anyone likes protein bars, we absolutely love the Aldi protein bars. I have not found anything anywhere near as good, but don't eat the coconut ones. They're disgusting.
I'll give them a try.
Yeah. So the coconut, they do a coconut one that you don't want to eat. They do a caramel and a chocolate nut fudge. And so my daughter has just got onto the protein bar wagon as well. And she was looking at them and she's like, I don't understand how this one has 15 grams of protein and this one has 17 grams of protein. But of course, like protein bars is such a great thing. Usually it's the thing, forget everything else. The number of grams of protein is the biggest thing that you see on that packaging, because that is the reason someone is buying. It's not necessarily the flavor. It's not necessarily how quick it's digested. It's just what I need is protein. Which one is going to give me the biggest bang for my calorie buck?
Yep. So, I mean, two things there that immediately come to mind, and it's a really good example to use. I think, going back to the earlier point that I made about packaging and how it's so overlooked, I think a lot of times we're guilty as brands and product makers that it's something, we need to create the packaging, we need to put pretty pictures and make it look appealing so it stands out on shelf, and then we forget about it. But actually, there's an art and a science to the packaging. There's hierarchy of information. There's some mandatory information that you should use. By the use of copy and color, you can then highlight the most important things. So in the case of a protein bar, how many grams of protein am I getting out of this? Doesn't matter how it's delivered. What is that thing? And so then that informs how this thing looks. That's from a product owner perspective. There's a art and science. From a retailer perspective, you're looking at, okay, cool. So if it's just, and I suppose this might also be from a product owner perspective, it's great. Everybody's now, putting these protein bars and showing exactly how many grams of protein, but what other value can you as the product owner help me? So you go back and say, well, if I don't have a mentality of set and forget, what I can do is use the rest of my real estate that I own of my packaging to highlight other things like special occasions, special value. It's your billboard. You can do with what you want.
And what I like about that is we sound like we're gym junkies, don't we? Like I interviewed a guy the other day who looked like The Rock, and I kind of made fun of him because I was like, he looked like he could have been in Ballers, or Ballers, as the Americans say. And he looked like him, and he was in finance, and I was like, am I being set up here? So we had a great big fun time about saying that I interviewed a guy who could be The Rock, but he's not The Rock. So we sound like we are such buff gym junkies, but we're just looking after our health. But what I'm thinking there is with the packaging and the real estate and that communication is this is your chance to stand out. And just like that conversation I had with one of our superchargers, which is, can I put the price up? Like I've got two identical products that do the exact same thing. How does a customer choose which one to buy? And if they are not familiar with that brand, then they actually might not choose anything because there is no differentiator. Whereas if you make one a little bit more expensive, regardless of what the recommended retail price is, if it looks nicer, if it looks like it delivers more value, make it more expensive, because at least now you've taken an easy way for me to make a decision. Do I want the cheaper one that might be a bit less in terms of quality or doesn't deliver as much, or do I want the more expensive one? And it doesn't matter which one they choose. But what you've done is made it easier for them to make a choice versus nothing at all.
And again, such a great talking point, I think. So I think I've seen common retailer tactics recently, or brand tactics, where they, in order to meet a certain price point, So in other words, not have the price go up too much, even though input costs are going in, they're reducing the packaging size, right? So the smaller product
so instead of like a block of chocolate, which used to be 250 grams, this is now like 180 grams.
Absolutely, because they recognize that that consumers are stressed, and so in order to not take too much of a price increase at the absolute level, as in the absolute price point, they've then reduced it. But I think consumers are becoming a little bit more savvy, and so they can see that that's happening. So therefore, at the same price point, how do we make sure that to our customers that there's value? And that's going to be, again, we talk again about how that packaging influences them. Talking about the hierarchy of information. What are the key things that we need to highlight that are our differentiator? The things that we've talked about in our brand strategy, whether we're good for the environment, whether we do no harm, all the things that are real trends at the moment, and real strong insights that consumers want, things that won't give me a hangover, to use an alcohol example. Those things are benefits. Those things are real benefits that need to be highlighted, that need to catch your eye in the first 10 seconds when someone sees you on the shelf. Because, this is an overused statement, but the sea of sameness of, packaging that's sitting on a shelf, it's everything looks like wallpaper. How do we catch people's eyes, and it's when they actually, and then when you get that opportunity, when someone picks up your product and inspects it, what are the things that they quickly need to understand that is going to appeal to them, that's going to make them choose, and ultimately not even care what the price is, because they see the real benefit of what they're purchasing. You
were talking about sea of sameness. I'm not sure if I shared this example with you or somebody else, but I was talking the other day how just going down the hair shampoo aisle in the grocery store, and once upon a time, it was just clear or white bottles. But now I'm noticing lots of pastel bottles and different shapes. And like I bought one because of the shape. It looked like it was really cute. I thought I'll give it a go. Purely but it looks like a milk bottle. And the poor people have had to write, do not drink. Everywhere it says, do not drink. And so I'm like, they clearly didn't think, but it worked. I tried a new brand because it looked cute. It was on sale. I thought, what's the worst I can do? I'll shave my legs with it or something.
And so there's a fine balance in a category. There are certain things that you expect from a category, as in from a subconscious point of view. So like from a milk perspective, there's another example. The milk bottles are generally all the same. Milk bottles are transparent. You can see the color of the milk behind, because then it gives you, the feeling that this is real milk, that it's, straight from the source. It's pure and it's everything. As soon as you go against those kinds of things, because the shopper that's coming in there and you want to disrupt them, you want to give them a try. And that's a common tactic, right? You change the ergonomic form of your packaging just so you stand out on shelf. But it'll take some people a little while to go, well, is this really the product that I'm looking for? Because it's not what I'm used to seeing. And that's why that manufacturer had to also go, this is not milk, even though it looks like it, don't drink it, please. But it did the job in that instance. And there's a fine balancing act that we have to, as a design agency and a specialist FMCG packaging agency, that we have to go. We have to pay respect to what the category expects to see. There's some, table stakes, to use a poker analogy. In order to play, there's certain things that you need to do, and that's either colors or messaging or shapes of bottles. But then the other 50% or whatever it might be is where you get to play with your DNA, and how you are either willing to be very bold and disrupt and create some kind of noise. It might be good, it might be bad, but there's a balancing act that needs to happen.
It does tie into your brand strategy, because I imagine a legacy brand is so much less likely to change their package. I mean, even the gluten-free bread, they changed the packaging this week, and I was like, is this my gluten-free bread? Like, it's in the same spot, but it looks very, very different. And of course, they had to put, same product, new packaging. But yet, if we go back to the wine, if something is in a quirky bottle, I just bought one the other day, bottle of Pinot Grigio, but the bottle looks like it could be a supersized perfume bottle. It's got like all like gilded, and it's got little, I don't know what the word is, but little diamonds cut into the glass. And I was like, I'll give this a try. Looks pretty.
And it's I've been privileged to be a part on the client side when I worked at SAB Miller to work on a lot of rebrand packaging products, and without fail. And so all that was, we took a can of beer and we changed the look of it, and we retained a lot of the things that people recognize, so the logos and colors, but we've changed it. And without fail, people would go, "Oh, but the liquid's changed. There's something different. There must be something different. I'm not going to buy it anymore." Exactly. Yeah. And it isn't that. And it's legacy brands, more often than not, will not do a big revolution of their packaging unless something fundamentally has changed for those kinds of reasons, because they've got equity, people recognize them, and as soon as something happens, just think about any company that's changed their logo, that divides opinion so much.
It's usually not very, those legacy brands, it's not very obvious, is it? It's like, no. I'm thinking like Kellogg's, it's like they just changed the shape of the font slightly, but the color was the same and the height was the same.
Yeah. Because if it's a full 180, then it's like, wow, there's something going on here. I don't recognize it. Or this company is different to what I thought it would be, that I loved, that I would follow, that I would buy religiously.
But if you are trying to get a step into the market, having that different packaging and being able to disrupt people's regular pattern could be the difference between you getting a sale and not.
Absolutely. And then, so again, we've been so privileged to work with many startup brands and those that have become established now. The great thing about working with them is that they're the little child that's looking for attention. Right. So they're willing to do whatever it takes. And that brave kind of client who is willing to do those things, more often than not, will get their time in the sun, which is encouraging.
And I'm just thinking about this from a retailer's perspective, is that when you're doing your product assortment, when you're choosing which products to buy, something as simple as this, as packaging, needs to come into the equation, because yes, you're always going to have your customers who want that legacy brand thing that you have on the shelf over and over. But then, and particularly for the shoppers, not the consumers, is giving them a reason to buy your thing, like stopping that pattern interrupt along the shelves, or even getting that existing consumer to go, this looks a bit different. I'm going to give it a go. And if you only have the same old, the sea of sameness in your store, and this doesn't matter whether it is online or in-store, if you only have the things that people regularly see, they're either going to default or they choose nothing, because sometimes you're just like, and maybe I wanted something different this time around.
Yeah, and again, great point. I think it comes down to the retailers understanding that the consumers want choice. Sometimes big brands, I've seen it in the craft beer market now. People are rebelling against the big boys because they're like, you're just a big machine. You don't really care about us. And so that's why craft beer has grown, because there's a great story to be told.
That's why the FMCG brands have pretend craft beer.
Yeah, exactly. And then the retailers are wise to those things, and we've worked with some big retailers before where they, if they don't find a brand that can fill that gap in their consumers' minds, they create their own. And which is good, but white labeling and in-house brands are a story in its own, but it's also just another powerful tool for retailers.
I know we're going to finish up soon, but I just quickly want to get your advice on packaging when you have an online store. And I have a little bit of a story here, which was when I was at the trade show a couple of months ago. There was this super cool product. If you wear glasses, it was like a really minimalist glasses case. So you just put the lenses part in. Look, I'm sure they had them in the 80s. This just was like a super duper leather version for the 2020s. And then you fold the arms over. So it was just really, really simple, very minimalist. And then they also had like a little money clip, I guess you would call it. But they didn't have packaging for both in the same package. They had packaging, beautiful, absolutely amazing packaging for both products. And I remember saying to them, but as a retailer, if I want to put the two of them together, like, how do I sell this thing? And they're like, well, you sell two. And I'm like, that's a bit silly. But what I wanted to get your opinion on was, do you think showcasing the packaging on an e-commerce store is worth the effort?
Again, I'm biased. I do. And for me, besides the earlier points that I've made about, it's a billboard, it's a chance for you to really get your story out there. It's a chance to, be explicit about the benefits for the consumers. Whether your product is, let's for instance, it's a liquid. The liquid isn't that interesting. So how are you going to show it? on an e-commerce site? Well, maybe you should do it something interesting with like the package. If it's a cream, it's probably white, but it looks like any other cream. So unless the thing that the packaging is housing is so unique in its color, in its makeup, packaging is your thing. That is your opportunity to create some standout. And again, that's the hero. We've often talked about it. It's like whether it's an outdoor billboard, huge billboard, or whether it's a TVC or anything like that, the packaging is the hero. It's the thing that you need to pay attention to. It's what the consumer will always see. And whether or not they dispose of it in the end, it is the thing that is going to inspire them to buy whatever's inside of that thing that will help them.
I know. And all the haters are going to say, oh, but packaging ends up in landfill. And yes, I, as a sustainable business owner for many, many years and a lover of everything sustainability, I understand it. But at the same time, we are in business. And if we are not making money, we won't be in business. And I just quickly before we finish up, if you're thinking that I'm an e-commerce store, how do I portray the packaging that's not boring? My suggestion would just be look at any kind of beauty website. Adore Beauty do this really, really well, where there's someone pouring the liquid onto their skin, or an eyedropper near the, if you're watching the video, an eyedropper near their face with the liquid coming out. Like it's, the product has to be showcased in a way that is different. But the packaging, at the end of the day, if I'm buying online and there are 27 mascaras and they all do the same thing, and I don't know which one to buy, I'm probably going to buy the one that has cool packaging.
Yeah. And on that point, before we finish up, if you have the right agency partner, they can help dress up your product for you. So not just with the packaging, but in the way it's rendered, in the environment it's in your example, and really just make it even more spectacular.
John Chan, not Jan, from Berge Farrell, thank you so very much. If people are thinking that they maybe need some help with packaging, or they just kind of want to follow along with you and hear what you have to say, where can they find you?
I'm very happy to connect with anyone on LinkedIn, and I can give you my email address, and obviously our website works really well as well. So john@bergefarrell.com.au, or hit me up on LinkedIn. Selena, this has been great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. You have a great day.
You too.
So that's a wrap. I'd love to hear what insight you've gotten from this episode and how you're going to put it into action. If you're a social kind of person, follow me at @TheSelenaKnight and make sure to leave a comment and let me know. And if this episode made you think a little bit differently, or gave you some inspiration, or perhaps gave you the kick that you needed to take action, then please take a couple of minutes to leave me a review on your platform of choice. Because the more reviews the show gets, the more independent retail and e-commerce stores just like yours that we can help to scale. And when that happens, it's a win for you, a win for your community, and a win for your customers. I'll see you on the next episode.